I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please rise and join to the pledge of allegiance if you so choose. The flag is in the back order. Motion to adopt the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? That passes 7-0-0. For the reading of the notice of annual meeting, I won't read it tonight, but you can find it on the website. It is also on page 7 of the budget mailer. If you did not receive the budget mailer, we have some up at the top of the room, underneath the front of the room. It's also available online. You can also contact the district office if you need a copy, but I believe you can mail this week. All right, presentation of the proposed budget.
Welcome. Hopefully you can hear us. First, I do want to thank the multiple people that put this together so we get to meet. In the gymnasium tonight, we had hoped to be in the auditorium, but our drama is back, and they are performing kinds of performances in a couple of days, so they really need to be in the auditorium. Also, it's beautiful out, so I'm glad you chose to be here. I'm going to introduce myself, Kate, and kick you off. It's my son's senior night. He's playing baseball. He's pitching one batter. I'm going to run out to see it, and I'm going to run back. And she's going to go over enrollment and all the fun things. And I trust her very much, but that's quite important to me. So I'm Chris Grasso. I'm the superintendent. Many of you, I'm sure, have been in this gymnasium as students, and as parents watching students, I welcome you back. Hopefully, you see some nice upgrades we've had. This is Kate Heath. She's the assistant superintendent for business, and she'll be really going through the budget here presentation with you. I should be back in maybe 10 minutes. It's going to be a quick inning. So thank you. I'm really glad you're here, and I'll be happy to answer questions as we go along.
Welcome. I'm going to kind of go through a school profile before we get into the numbers so you can see what our enrollment is current year and we're projecting out into next year. We are looking at approximately 30 student loss year over year. Yep.
Can everybody hear okay? It's a little hard for me to hear.
Could it be louder?
I can try.
That's better.
I'll start over. So on this page, I have the school, starting with the school profile, just looking at enrollments. So we have pre-K through 12, and including some of our BOCES students is the off-campus line. So looking year over year, we're projecting a 30 student decrease. You can see that those numbers fluctuate from grade level to grade level. So it isn't all in one particular area. It kind of fluctuates throughout each of the buildings. This shows a history from 2007, so you can see we had some pretty steep declines back in 2010, 2011, and we've maintained pretty stable over the years since then. That blue line is our low socioeconomic population as a percentage of enrollment. You can see that's been steadily increasing. And we point that out because as we're offering supports for those students, that represents a cost to the budget. This is a comparison of live births to kindergarten enrollment. So the line in green, I'm guessing it might be a little hard to see back there, but the line in green is the number of births that should correspond to kindergartner students in that same year. And the line in blue is our kindergarten enrollment. And you can see how that goes up and down. We do have a few anomalies where enrollment peaked while number of births went down and vice versa, but overall it kind of follows the same trend. So based on that, we're anticipating an increase in student enrollment in approximately, well, in kindergarten enrollment specifically, in approximately 2027. I'm going to touch on UPK just real briefly. It's a grant through the state. So we have an allocation to support pre-K programs, 4-year-old daily program only, and we get $5,400 per student. So that $318,000 isn't total, it's based on the number of students we totally have. So this current year we have 36 students for 2 classrooms, so we'll receive just shy of $195,000 for those students. Right now, we have 11 students on the waiting list, and based on those numbers, we're unfortunately not able to open up a third classroom yet unless we get some more registration. It is a lottery-based system. We drew our first lottery May 1st. If we have another number of students over the next couple of weeks and we go over that third classroom allocation, we'll have another lottery. And this is just some more information on that pre-K program, if anybody's interested. Just to touch on student programming, these are the different areas that we provide instruction for pre-K through 12. So all of these different areas are covered. Some of them are optional. We do have a number of electives at the high school level and some AP classes and dual enrollment classes. The dual credit classes are offered through TC3, so that students are able to get college credit before they even leave high school based on that. I have BOCES program at the bottom. And so this is just a slide showing all the different programs that are offered through BOCES and the different areas. I have links on there if anybody's interested in following those. And we have approximately 80 to 90 students who participate in the BOCES program in some way, shape, or form. These are our student extracurriculars, both student clubs and athletics. We have quite a number of students who participate in these. You can see for the extracurricular, we have approximately 455 students, 3 through 12, who participate in these various clubs. And for athletics, we have between 210 to 280 students per season. So it's quite a program that our students are interested in and participate in, and so we look to maintain that. These are the various student supports we have at each of the buildings. We have some positive behavior intervention services at the middle school, which is really promoting our students to have better behaviors and have a safer classroom environment. Something similar we offer at the elementary school is responsive classroom. And with that, we use our psychologists, our social workers, and our counselors to really help support those programs, as well as all the counseling that they do. We also have a number of special education supports that we hire internally now from occupational therapy to even to a special education itinerant teacher for our preschool students. These are supports that are offered during the school day and in some cases outside of the school day. We have listed here our priorities. We've gone through these, as we're going into strategic planning, we're looking at these areas. Regionalization is something that's new, that's come out of the state, and so we're looking to really partner with other area school districts through TST BOCES to try to offer programs that maybe we can't offer here, but another school district can, and really sharing our resources so that every student in our area has the same opportunities, regardless of which building they may attend. We're also promoting equity and access for all, so that all students have every opportunity to get the same education and get the resources and the tools that they need to access that education. Obviously, we want a safe and supportive learning environment. We're looking for future-ready facilities. So as you see, we're engaged in a capital project. We're wrapping up one capital project through middle school for HVAC improvements, and we're embarking on a new capital project this year to improve our athletic and instructional facilities. And part of what we're doing tonight is in community engagement. So we're always seeking to improve that and to make sure that our community has the information they need to be aware of what's happening in the schools. And then finally, fiscal responsibility and efficiency. So we look at all these priorities as we start to build our budget each year. So with that, for our 25-26 budget, we're looking at $39,695,000. It's an increase of just over $1 million, or a 2.86% increase from year to year. As we were going through those priorities, one of the things we look to do is to stay as far away from student programming as possible as we're looking at reductions. So what can we do and still maintain programs? So when we took a look at that, these positions on the left were some areas where we either had some decline in enrollment or we had some changes to enrollment, and we felt that we could make those reductions without impacting students' instruction. On the right, we have some non-direct instruction areas, curriculum writing, materials, supplies, and equipment, conferences, and field trips. We are not eliminating these completely, we just are reducing the money that we're putting towards those different areas. So where does that money go? We focus on our instructional budget. 42% of our operating expenditures are on instructional staff. And if you look there on the right, you can see I have regular programs and special education services. Those combined are $20 million. So really we're putting the bulk of our budget towards student instruction. We also have our facilities and construction area at $1.9 million. And we make sure that we're providing safe transportation for our students, and we allocate a budget for that as well. As we look at expenses, there's sort of four real large areas that are driven here. We have instruction, which is direct instruction to student support services, athletics, and all the things that our students need to get the education they deserve. Undistributed, that area includes all the benefits for all of our staff. It includes debt service, and it includes transfers. And I'll kind of get into these areas in a little more detail. General support is all the kind of the nuts and bolts operations that happen behind the scenes from the district office and the business office, facilities, and all of the legal and auditing services that happen in addition to that. And then finally, we have pupil transportation, which is obviously transporting our students. So you can see the different areas where that's increasing and decreasing. Primarily the largest increase is in undistributed, and again, that includes our benefits, but it also includes the debt service for those capital projects I was just talking about, that oncoming debt that we have. And then the other large increase here is in instruction. Kind of shifting the way that we look at those same numbers, breaking it down between salaries and equipment and the different components of the budget, you can see that the primary increase here is in salaries, and that is salaries for our, not just our instructional staff, but all of our staff. Some of that, you can see the decrease in the contractual and supplies. I mentioned earlier some of our special education services are in-house. We had initially planned for those to be contracted out for 24-25. We ended up hiring those, and so that's that decrease in contractual, and there's a shift over into salaries as a result of that. So our salaries and benefits equate to 70% of our budget overall. One of the other key pieces here is a contractual. That's just over $6 million or just under $7 million. The bulk of that is our BOCES services at $5 million. And so that's all the programming that I was just talking about that BOCES provides for our students, as well as some cost sharing opportunities that we utilize. Other areas that fall into contractual, any services that we have that are not hired internally, so that might be some of our physical therapy or our occupational therapy. We also have legal services, association dues. All of those services that we hire out fall into that contractual category. I'm just looking at the year-over-year increase for those kind of broader categories. Salaries and benefits, we're seeing about a 3% increase year over year. Debt service and transfers, that's a large percentage increase at about $500,000. It's a 17.87% increase, again, because that oncoming debt. We also break down the budget in what's called a three-part budget, administrative, program, and capital. That's a way the state asks us to share this information. That administrative component is mostly that general support component that I talked about earlier, but you add in any of the employee benefits that are associated with the personnel in that area. Program is all the instruction and student supports, and then capital is our facilities operation, insurance, benefits, and again, that debt service. Shifting over into revenue, there are four larger categories of revenue, and I'll get into each of these. I'm going to kind of start with the bottom and work my way up. Starting with transfers, that might be for debt service, unappropriated fund balance, and reserves, the use of reserves. Our debt service fund is encompassed by any monies that we borrow for capital project, but we end up not spending. Those monies legally have to go into what's called a debt service fund. We are able to use those funds annually to help support the local share of our debt, our principal and interest payments each year. So we do use a component of that each year to support our budget. Unappropriated fund balance is that is monies not allocated for any specific use, so they're not allocated in reserves or for offsetting the local share, but they're sitting there as a kind of a reserve if we need something or if something comes up. That is accumulated via revenues over expenditures. So if at any given year our revenues come in higher than anticipated or our expenditures come in lower, that access goes into unappropriated fund balance. By law, that amount cannot exceed 4% of our overall budget. So if we look and we see that we might be exceeding that 4%, we have options. We can add it to the current reserves that we have, or we can use it to offset part of the budget for the next year. And so historically, we've done a little bit of both of those things. And then reserves are accounts created for a specific purpose. A good example is our capital reserve, so we add to that over the years. So when we do have to go out for a capital project, we're able to use some of that reserve to offset the local share, or to offset what we have to borrow for that. So looking at our unappropriated fund balance, we are projecting to end the year with an excess of revenues over expenses. We had some higher revenues than we initially anticipated due to interest earnings and BOCES refund, and our expenditures are coming in slightly under as well. So we are looking at increasing our unappropriated fund balance by approximately $900,000. At the start of the year, we were at about 2.86% of our budget, so well under that 4. If we end the year without touching that balance, we're projecting we'll be at about 5%. So we're recommending we use $500,000 of that unappropriated fund balance to offset next year's budget. So that'll bring that down to 3.77% fund balance. So then we'll be under the 4% and we're able to minimize the impact to the local taxpayer. And you can see the transfer budget I have below. We're increasing the amount of debt service that we're utilizing. With interest rates being what they are, we have been earning more interest than we are using, so we're able to increase that amount. And then unappropriated fund balance slightly decreasing. We used a significant amount last year. That's not sustainable. If we continue to use that same amount each year, we'll be out within just a few years. So we're trying to be mindful of maintaining that fund balance. And then we did use reserves for the current year for 24-25, so we're not recommending the use of those reserves for next year. A quick state aid update. The final state aid numbers did come in last week. There was no real significant impact to us. The language remained pretty much the same, with a 2% minimum increase to foundation aid, which is what the governor had put out in January. So you can see in the first column there, I have the governor's proposal, and then I have last week's proposal from the legislature. It's a slight decrease of $1,350. And some of those decreases, instructional materials aid is based on a certain amount per student, so they're projecting our enrollment to be a little lower than they had originally anticipated, and so that's that slight decrease there. Foundation aid is the basic amount of aid that the state funds. It's based on a formula. They changed that formula a little bit this year, again giving districts that minimum 2%, and they put a heavier emphasis on districts that have a large English language learner population, so that was a shift there. BOCES aid, high cost access aid, private access cost aid, and transportation aid, those are all based on prior year expenditures. So that aid amount is based on our projected expenses for the current year. So the more we spend in BOCES, the more aid we get as it's a percentage of those expenditures, and we're at about 65% aid in that area right now. Building aid is based on completed projects. So when we complete a capital project and we send that report to the state, that starts generating aid to help support the cost of that debt service. So looking at the state funding budget to budget, you can see we have a projected increase of about $381,000, small increase at the foundation aid level. And then our BOCES aid, we did have higher BOCES expenses this year, so we're projecting an increase in our aid there. Our BOCES aid did come in a little bit higher this year as well. And our access cost aid and our private access cost aid, those are tied to special education students and the cost of their tuition at various programs. So as those tuitions increase or decrease, that aid does the same. Transportation aid, that again is based on our anticipated expenditures, so we're looking at a slight decrease there. And that building aid is projected to increase again because we're wrapping up some of those capital projects that have been in the works. Other local revenue, I mentioned interest earnings earlier, with rates having been between 4% and 5% for the last year. we did end up bringing in more interest earnings than we originally budgeted. We're projecting now about $445,000 in interest, where we had originally budgeted $300,000. We have increased that budget for next year, but we do want to maintain some conservatism there, as we don't know what those rates will do over the course of the year. So we don't want to make our projections too high and then have interest rates plunge on us. The other areas have been fairly stable, other than the refund of prior year expenses. The bulk of that amount is a refund from BOCES. So we pay BOCES based on their anticipated expenses. They can't hold unappropriated fund balance, so if they receive more money than they had to spend, that access comes back to the districts and what they spent. So that refund has been higher than anticipated the last several years, so we're increasing that to kind of be closer to what our actuals have been over the last several years. Tax levy and pilots. The tax levy is the amount of money raised from property taxes to support the budget. Pilots are payment in lieu of taxes, so those properties have a set value, and they pay, four of those pilots pay their payment based on the tax rate and that set value. We do have one pilot that's based on a flat amount. So their total amount is distributed between all the municipalities, county, town, and school districts based on various percentages that fluctuate from year to year. I've shown what our pilot values were from year to year. We did have one pilot go off. And I'll kind of explain why that's important in the next slide. But the values decreased significantly, which means our pilot payments will decrease heading into next year. And that pilot does shift back down to the tax levy. So it's not that it goes away completely, it just shifts over to that tax levy category. As we look at the tax cap, there's the formulas here, and there's a couple key points here. I have highlighted that the pilots play a pretty integral role into this tax cap calculation. So as those numbers fluctuate and increase or decrease significantly, they have a large impact on what that final maximum allowable levy is. The other real key piece to know is that prior year tax levy is always where you start. So whatever you go out with is where you start the following year. So as we did that calculation, our tax cap was $24,875,000, and that is our proposed levy. We're projecting going out just about $36 under the tax cap, or 5.13% increase in tax levy. Our combined levy, so those tax levy and the pilots combined, is $24.9 million, and that's a 4.75% increase. Looking at the revenues and local, state, federal, and appropriations, which is also that transfers, this kind of breaks that down and shows you in more of a graph format all the things that I kind of just went over. But you can see our local share is at about, I think that says 66, it's a little tiny, 66%, and our state share is around 30%, and that's fairly typical year to year. Transfers and other, it says 0, but it's like a 0.05% of the overall budget. And then federal, it's pretty stable at $80,000 each year. That is any Medicaid reimbursement. So if we have students who receive support service that are Medicaid eligible, we get that money back from Medicaid through the federal government. Looking at year-over-year change, you can see our local revenue is projected to increase by 5.96%, our state revenue just over 3%, and our federal revenue, we're not anticipating any change year to year. Here's just another kind of graph that shows the increases. And again, looking at a 2.86% increase in our revenue as well. Projected tax rate. I highlight this in red every year. It is an estimate. We don't know those final numbers until we get the July assessments. So we're working off projected assessments right now. But you can go see what your projected change in assessment is and kind of do the upcoming calculations, so you can kind of get an idea of how this might impact you. Here's just a quick slide showing how we get to that tax rate. You take your total combined levy and you divide it by your total assessments to get that rate. So as levy increases and assessments increase, that rate seems stable, but if one goes down while the other goes up, that rate can fluctuate. Assessments are determined by Tompkins County, so Jay Franklin, the assessor, gives us a projection in March so that we have something to kind of work off of. This year, assessments are expected to only increase by just over 1%. So they have stopped reassessing for the next several years, next 2 years, I believe, and they're only assessing if there's been changes or if new properties are built. So we're expecting that assessed value to be fairly stable over the next 2 years. So looking at our particular information, we're looking at an estimated tax rate of 17.92 per thousand, which is an increase from the prior year of 67 cents per thousand. So if you have a $100,000 home, that's $67, a $200,000 home, $134,000, and so on and so forth. Here's just a historical look, looking at our tax projections versus our final numbers. Mr. Franklin is really good about giving us conservative estimates for our assessed values. So typically what our final rate ends up being is a little lower than our initial projection. So that's better than being a little higher than our initial projection. And then a historical look at budgets and levy versus CPI. So as our year-over-year budget increases, we always kind of take a look at what our inflation rate is for that same year, so we can kind of get an idea of more in line. For the most part, we've been fairly in line with CPI over the years. The 1 year I would note that we were not was right towards the end of COVID, where prices were really escalating, and the CPI hadn't really caught up yet. Again, our proposed budget is $39,695,000. Our key takeaways is we are planning to stay within the cap. We are maintaining our programmatic needs to the best extent possible. We have looked at not impacting anything student-related with our reductions. We have to meet our contractual obligations, so those are included in this budget. We are supporting students in all areas. We're replacing equipment at the end of its useful life, so we do have a replacement schedule for all of our equipment, and that includes our transportation equipment and our facilities equipment to make sure we have the equipment we need to keep our district up to date. And we are modernizing technology for student transportation. We're looking at modernizing what is on our buses to help track our students and make sure we know where they are at all times while on a school bus. And we're leveraging additional fund balance to support our operations. We do have the bus proposition up here. We are looking to get 4 vehicles. These will be diesel vehicles, one large diesel bus and a small diesel bus, and then a school van and a school suburban. And that van and suburban are used for student transportation. Sometimes we have students who have to go to different programs, and there's only 1 or 2 of them, so rather than taking a large school bus, we take a school van. Voting information, May 20th, the budget vote will be in the elementary school cafeteria again from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. We do not have students in the elementary school or middle school that day. It is a virtual half day. There's an art show happening at the elementary school. The book fair will be happening, and then Bobcat gear for sale, and our Altapa and sports boosters will each have tables within the building so people can get information on what it means to be a part of those organizations. We do have additional budget information on our website. There's a ton of documents out there, both prior presentations and the budget statement, which includes more detailed line-by-line revenues and expenses, and the information is up there and ready to be viewed now. The budget, as Aziza mentioned, the budget newsletter is also posted there if that hasn't come in your mailbox yet. So we often get asked what happens if the budget fails. If that happens, we have 3 options. We can either go back out directly with another vote with the same exact budget and just hope to increase public awareness. We can also go back out with a revised budget. So we would make adjustments to that budget based on feedback, or we can go immediately to a contingent budget. If the voters put down the budget a second time, then we must go to a contingent budget, and I'll explain what that looks like here in a second. So a contingent budget requires a 0% tax levy increase. So you'll remember earlier I talked about the pilots and how that impacts that. A 0% tax levy does not take into account the fact that we had $1 million fall off our pilot. So that means that we would be looking at a reduction in our budget year over year of almost $1.5 million, or a 1% reduction. There is certain spending that is restricted that we're not allowed to spend on. That would be any new equipment, any community use of facilities is restricted, and any non-essential maintenance. And then student supplies, we do provide a number of supplies for our students. We would be unable to do that, so families would be responsible for providing those, and we would be unable to purchase athletic uniforms. Obviously, those areas wouldn't bring us 1.5 million, so we'd have to be looking at other expenses to reduce in order to meet that contingent budget amount. We are planning on having community conversations. Those will be virtual on May 14th at both 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. So if people are unable to make tonight, they have another opportunity to catch this presentation. And now I'll open it up for questions. If you have a question, raise your hand and then you can bring in the mic so that we can hear you. Yep.
In the debt service, in the flyer that you sent out, the debt service is increasing $518,973. Does that include debt service for the buses?
Yes.
It does, okay. And then I noticed in one of your links on the website where you could look at state aid, and it says in the Gen report, or the governor's proposal and the legislative proposal, it said that we're only going to get building aid this year of $1,763,733.
For the current year, you're asking?
For the current year. But it said we're going to get only aid for $1,659,299 for 25-26. So that we're getting less aid.
You're looking at the state reports?
Yes.
So we haven't finalized those project cost reports, so the state is unaware that we're about to finalize
Okay,
those, so they don't know that.
So they don't know that yet?
Correct.
Okay, because you projected in another slide back in the 13th of January that you estimated you were going to get $2,257,000.
Yep.
So it's going to go up $500,000 once the state knows what's going on? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
They don't know what's going on.
Not yet, we haven't finalized those reports.
Okay, and then the other question I had, a couple more. You, in the, I think it was the 425 presentation, when you adopted the budget, you run a deficit, not a deficit, but you budgeted $12,181,000 and change for state aid, and you got less than that. You got $458,000 less. What caused that? What was the reason you got?
Some of that was BOCES aid, because our BOCES expenses ended up for 23-24 ended up being less than we had projected, so that aid was lower. Some of that was a shift in foundation aid as we had lower enrollment that was initially projected, and so there were a number of things that kind of played into that.
Okay, so, and the other part of that question is, in the brochure that's sent out to the public, you got, I think it's another category called other state grants. Is that the plant
Yes.
cessation?
Yep. The other state funding is primarily the power station.
Right,
fund.
so you had $210,000 budgeted for that for this year, I believe, correct?
For current year, yeah, that was a piece of it, yeah, for that other aid. It wasn't the whole thing, but yes.
Okay, so did we get the $210,000?
We are anticipating to get about 160, I believe, off the top of my head.
Okay, so wouldn't you...
For that piece of it.
So wouldn't that be added to your forecast, or does your forecast include that?
My forecast should include that.
It does include that.
It should. I don't have it in front of me, but it should.
Okay, because your forecast, as I say, 11/7/23, and it should include the plant cessation money.
From November, you're saying?
No, you did this on 4/23/25.
I thought you just said 11. I apologize.
4/23/25.
Yep.
So I'm just asking is the plant cessation money in that number?
Yeah, we have not received it yet, so I don't have the final number, but yes.
Okay, because the gen report, I looked at that too, and that said that we're gonna get 11,742,000, which is higher than what you budgeted or said we were gonna get. That's the gen report for 24-25.
That does not include the cessation fund.
Right. So if you added that on, you got 11,9. So I'm confused.
I'd have to look at what, I'm having a hard time following the numbers verbally, so I'd have to look and see what you're looking at to really be able to answer that more articulately.
Yeah, because as I say, the gen report doesn't include the plant cessation money,
Correct.
does it? So the gen report says 11,700. So if we took another 100 of that, we had 11,800, and you're only saying we're getting 11,700. So that it just doesn't add up.
Well, I will say that the May numbers came out since April, so those have been updated.
Okay.
And we did see an increase from April to May, and our transportation aid projection for the current year has increased slightly, as is our building aid from that April 20.
Okay. And then the other question I had, every year in the flyer that's sent out, the brochure, there was a line item for the bus garage, for operating the bus garage. And this year, there was no line item for that. Was that included something?
It's combined with pupil transportation.
Okay, so it wasn't a part of the garage then?
It
The
wasn't.
garage is in that number?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. I just wanna, let's apply the same rules we do, but let's give 5 minutes. Can you hear me? Let's talk about 5 minutes and give everyone a chance to kind of follow the questions, please. Thank you. Any more questions?
Debbie's got the mic and bring it to you. Thank you very much. Yep. Sorry, Mrs.
So we've talked about this a couple of times in meetings. Considering the current state of federal funding and uncertainty of it, have you heard anything else about rescinding UPK aid and how that might affect the state funding?
Did you say UPK?
Yes.
We haven't heard anything specific. Initially, that UPK funding was a federal grant. It is now a state grant. However, they do receive a portion of their funding that they use from the federal government. We have not heard anything specific on how that might be impacted moving forward.
And then I just want to add on to, can you talk a little bit more about regionalization? In the past, regionalization has been more about closing and not providing services. Can you talk to that?
I'm going to kick that one to Chris.
We had, back in around November, December, state ed and the governor's office was requesting that school districts really look at regionalization, and we started to analyze our data. And it's like looking at all the schools within your BOCES. And then they pulled back on that. It's like, there's a lot for this year, we're not going to mandate that. But most areas have decided it's in our best interest to move forward with that anyway. And there's multiple areas that we're looking at for our region. One of the biggest ones, one of our biggest obstacles with some programming is access to transportation. And it's with busing, and with our communities being so close to each other, especially Dryden, Lansing, it's amazing backwards for all of us to have full fleets that are available readily when we could be transporting together in some areas, especially some of our private schools. We could be transporting together, so we have that obligation to some of our BOCES programming, or some of our New Visions programs, where we may only be 3 or 4 students, and a bus might be going through Lansing to get to the location. So we're really looking in that area. So to begin with is transportation. And another big area is just programs, availability of programs. There's really no big gate or line between districts, right? So we're really trying to say there's some schools that have amazing arts programs, some schools that might have amazing math or other options that we don't have, or that we have that they don't have. especially if we only have 2 or 3 students that are interested in those programs. So how can we combine, so our 2 or 3 students that are interested in maybe a strong ag program could attend that ag program, either full day or half day or for certain parts of the day, or attend their CTE program that they're in at BOCES and then go to the other school, but they're still a Lansing student. They're still getting a Lansing school diploma. So obviously there's a ton of work behind that, a lot of just semantics for us to work on, but that one, it creates more opportunities for students and individualizing some of the educational aspects, but being efficient as we're doing it. So we've had 2 full meetings with large groups led by the superintendent of BOCES, Lily Talcott, and many people for faculty and staff and board of education, and administrators from Lansing have been attending, as well as the other component schools, and we'll have a 3rd one coming up, and then we'll start to really look at some goals and start to try to implement some of them. So hope that answered. So it's more around programming and not necessarily cutting or reducing like it's been in the past, but growing, but in an efficient way.
So I understand that, oh, sorry, that's so loud, that you're, they're in the phases of discussing all the possibilities with this, and when do they expect that families might actually benefit from some of these ideas?
So the big ones could possibly be next school year, and it will be around specific programs for special education, around students with autism. We are looking for a program that will serve more of our students that are specifically looking for an autism program. That's with a specific style. So in all the schools are looking for that. And one of the reasons why we're open to that now, as we may have talked around enrollment a little bit, although we're starting to edge up, we have empty classrooms at the elementary level. We're using them in other ways while we can, but certainly we would have a space to have a program that's housed in Lansing for students with autism. And we would look at having students maybe from Groton or Dryden or Ithaca, and there would be very specific programs too that Ithaca might offer. So that's an area that we're really hopeful to have availability for starting in the fall. And I know those classrooms, Dryden has space, we have space, and Streamsburg, so we will definitely be looking to increase it. Right now, we have a number of students that are on wait lists to get into programs. Those needs are very high, and the training of the teachers is very specific, and so hopefully we'll have that, and then we can, students who attend to the program that would best fit their need, which actually might free up other programs that they're kind of in transition, and then other students will be able to enter those programs. Ideally, you're actually going to the program that best meets your need. And hopefully this happens. And what we're doing, so it's not on an annual basis that you're looking for the program. Those programs are 3-year age gaps. You have 3-year different grades, that you're making a commitment for 3 years for that to happen. So you have stability. So if I'm a family sending my students to Dryden, I know that my child will be there, has that option for 3 years.
Any more questions for the audience? I have one more. So we haven't talked about electric buses in a while, and this is supposed to be the time for we start buying. But again, because of the uncertainty political atmosphere, can you switch that? Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? I asked about electric buses, and this is supposed to be the time period we're supposed to start purchasing. Can you please speak to that?
So originally, our timeline to start converting to electric buses was by 27, fiscal year 27-28. That has shifted with a new state budget. So originally we had 10 years to comply from that original date, and then our full fleet had to be converted by 2035. We don't have a lot of specifics yet on the new language. We do know that requirement is shifting, that there will be waivers that you can get to adjust that timeline and kind of put that out, that there's going to be other requirements about feasibility. We haven't received all that language yet, but we know that is shifting.
That's one that we don't have the infrastructure to purchase buses at this time. So, you know, some of these mandates, we really like to be ahead of them. This is not one of them right now. Not for, really just because there's not the infrastructure, there's not the funding, not that we believe or not believe in EV and the benefits of it. It's really just about the state, where it's at right now in influx. So we're kind of waiting a little bit before we move forward.
Any more questions before we close the public hearing about the budget? Nope. All right. I would like to introduce the candidates who will be on the ballot for this May 20th. Please stand. David Hatfield. Thank you. Matthew Packer. And Susan Kiki. Thank you, Bert. Oh, and come up to the front, please. We'll take a 5-minute break while we adjust and set up for the weekend candidates, but thank you for visiting, and we'll get started very soon. Thank you.
school board candidate forum. We're proud to be non-partisan, never supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties at any level of government, always working on vital issues that concern the members of the League and the public. The League does take action to support or oppose specific governmental policies based on positions developed through member study and agreement. We encourage everyone to register to vote and take part in all elections, and in this case, school board elections. And we also encourage you to get your 16-year-olds pre-registered so the day they turn 18 they can vote. So I hope you do that. The three candidates running tonight, on the far distance is Susan Tabrizi, then Matthew Hector, and then David Hatfield. The forum is being live streamed, but no online questions will be received. We have received and are trying to sort them out here, some questions that were submitted to the school board clerk by email. And then there will be questions that you submit. Each candidate has 3 minutes to make an opening statement, and then 1 minute to answer each question. If they want to make a rebuttal to the answers the other candidates make to a specific question, they have a red flag to hold up, and they can make 3 of those rebuttals. At the end of the evening, and I've been asked for us to close by 8 o'clock at the very latest, so the closing statements we'll aim to start at 7:45 with the opening statements. As I say, you may submit written questions on the cards, and then, as I say, there will be 2 minutes for closing statements. And what I want to remind you, I don't want any hostile questions. This is supposed to be informational and for you to learn who is the best person to sit on your school board and educate your kids. I don't want you to applaud or heckle until the end of the event. And somebody put their hand up, I'm not sure.
I just have a point of order question.
Oh, I recognize you.
The police law, I don't believe it'll be right.
You'll have to shout.
Did you say that there was no online questions submitted?
No online, it's live streamed, and it will be recorded, and afterwards we will have it on our website, and I assume your website here at Lansing. But we received some questions submitted ahead of time to the school board clerk by email. Now we're trying to sort these out because we're ready to go. All right. So if you'd all turn off your cell phones so we don't get distracted by siren calls or anything like that, that would be good. And we're starting with the first opening statement by Susan, and she's been timed by my colleague Tara, sitting there. So, off you go.
Let's check again. 1 second. Is your switch on? What's your mic number, Susan? 9. 9? Interesting. Okay. my lights didn't show that.
How about now?
Yeah, much better.
Okay, this is Max, so we're just gonna share.
Sorry about that.
Okay. All right, starting again. Hi, everybody. I'm Susan Breezy. Thanks so much for coming tonight and taking interest in our community school. As many of you know, I have been proud to call Lansing home for 18 years. I'm a parent of 2 children who've gone through the district, one questions guide my work because I believe that every choice we make should be rooted in the best interests of our children. I bring to the table years of experience as a college professor where I helped students navigate higher education, civic life, after school, their entry into the workforce. I'm the founding president and executive director of Nancy Lunchbox, which is a nonprofit that makes sure that none of our kids in Lansing go hungry. I also serve on our community's zoning board of appeals, and I serve on the Tompkins County Community Services Mental Health Subcommittee. I tell you these things because these experiences have helped shape my approach to thoughtful decision-making, grounded in evidence, driven by a commitment to fiscal responsibility and educational excellence. I understand how policy impacts students and families, and I'm working hard to make sure our community and our community school remains excellent. I also believe that effective leadership requires constant learning. I work with regional partners holding leadership roles at the New York State School Board Association, the Central New York School Board Association, that awarded me the Board Member of Achievement in 2024, and the TST BOCES School Board Association. Looking ahead, I'm committed to continuing this work with integrity, transparency, and a relentless focus on what is best for all of our students. I will continue to ask hard questions and keep the focus where it belongs, our kids. My leadership is grounded in experience, deep knowledge, unwavering commitment to our community, and the belief that every child deserves the best opportunities we can provide. It's my honor to serve this community, and I ask for your support. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting and all my attendance this evening. My name is Matt Acker, and I'm running for re-election to the Board of Education. I've been a proud Lansing resident for the past 12 years. I have an 8th grader and 11th grader currently in the district. I've worked as a PA in diversion care medicine for about 20 years now. I have taught NP students, PA students, and medical students. I'm currently teaching in a diversion care fellowship program. Why am I telling you all this? I know what it's like to teach in a facility where you're being supported and what it's like to teach in a facility where you're not being supported. In my opinion, we have a great school district here. We have so much to offer for the size of our district, but there is always room for improvement. When improvements are made, I feel it is important to be fiscally responsible to ensure the financial health and well-being of the district for years to come. One improvement I would like to see is more communication to families and the community. I would like to see the school be the center of the community and increase involvement of parents and students. I feel we're getting there. The school board will soon have students sitting on the board because, of course, that is the reason we're here. I'm excited to hear their thoughts, their concerns, and their ideas on how to make the district even better. I think one of my strengths on the school board currently is my ability to calmly listen to differing viewpoints and help find constructive solutions to problems. I'd like to thank you for your consideration.
Good evening. My name is Dave Edford. I've lived in Lansing all my life. I went to Lansing High School, put 13 years into the school. I've lived here since then. I'm married to a Lansing girl. I have 4 children. I graduated from Lansing High School. And I have now 8 grandchildren, 6 of which are somewhere between starting kindergarten and going into 10th grade. So I have a lot of vested interest in being on the school board. I've also served on the Lansing Planning Board for several years in the past. I'm the president of the Lansing Rod Young Club. At the time, the club was pretty much broke. We're now more than solvent. I started my own catering business, mostly barbecues for the charity of the schools, and also for my own business. I'm a hard worker, good listener. I'm willing to learn a different perspective. Just talk to me. I can also make a correct decision when it's not a popular decision. I I believe in giving back to the community, that's why I'm here. I believe this school has a strong academic program. Proof is in the number of students attending college. I also believe that those who don't want to go to college should get all the education you can through the trade schools. I think that's very important because you need both. The activities, I've helped the music drama club before, benefits. I've helped almost every sports team in this school through barbecues. I think we have some of the best student athletes and students in the county. I'd like to see us continue to have a strong academic excellence through Lansing. Thank you.
Sally, sorry, we can actually go to 8 o'clock because we didn't start till 2 minutes after 7, so we can take Cody's statements at 8 o'clock.
Until 8 o'clock, yeah.
Yes.
The final statements, we need to be ready to go to final statements.
At 8 o'clock, we can do 8 o'clock, that's
Oh,
7 o'clock.
so we can run over after 8 o'clock?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. Okay, this first question is for you, Matt, and it concerns the budget. I'm rolling several questions in together. The school budget is the most crucial decision you have as a board member. Will you favorably, before you answer this, will you be favorably supporting this year's school budget? How are you going to advocate for increased resources at the local, state, and federal levels to support this budget? So, are you going to support this year's school budget as it's been presented? And how will you, or will you, advocate for increased resources at the local, state, and federal levels to support that budget? And that's enough. Okay, Matt.
So the short answer is yes, I will be advocating for this current budget. I think that our students need the resources that we're providing, as we're going to try to pull more resources that we can to allow them to continue to learn. So I think that we really need to keep doing that.
Dave. Same question.
I'm not involved in the school budget, but I would like to say I would support it because it's been presented by the board as it's been put out. So I would think that the budget is probably a good budget. I would support it.
So the budget that was presented tonight, you will support?
I would support the budget, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Susan?
Yes, I will be supporting the budget. I participated with my grade 4 members in the development of the budget, and so I know the ins and outs of it well. I believe that there are smart reductions encompassed within our budget that stay as far away from student programming as we possibly can, and yet still deliver a quality education for our students at a reduction in certain costs. And I will be advocating for not only our budget, but increased resources from the state through my work in the New York State School Board Association, and also the Central New York School Board Association. At the TST BOCES SBA, I have worked on initiatives to advocate around school buses, cell phone policy, and a place for board members on our local IDA, Industrial Development Board.
And the next question is also on the budget. Can you elaborate on your extent of knowledge about the budget overspending? This is specifically
I don't recall mentioning the budget at all in the opening statement, but I'm definitely in favor of the children in the school getting the best education they can get, no matter what, the budget includes. I just think, we got to put some more into trades, more into schools, more into the education here in Lansing. Make an overall good school education opportunity for the children.
Thank you. No, okay. And this is Dave Morris from
So, can I pause for 1 moment? I'm sorry. Yep, the live stream, you just need to make a quick change. Sorry. Okay, we're back.
Okay. Dave, this is your answer this question first. The members, whoever is elected to the board, will be on the board when the next labour contract between the district and the teachers will have to be negotiated. What do you think should be done to retain and recruit good teachers, but at the same time control costs? Dave?
Well, I guess, I think we have some pretty good teachers here, and the staff is outstanding, from the administration right down to the smaller people in the school. I don't, without getting into the budget numbers, I wouldn't be able to answer that question, to be honest with you. Because I'm not on the board, I'm just trying to get on it.
Yes, but if you are on the board, what do you think should be done to retain and recruit good teachers?
Well, we have to look at the money cost of the salary. I mean, we obviously want to retain the good people we have here, so we have to do whatever has to be done to keep them here.
Matt? Can they leave their microphones on all the time?
I'll adjust from here.
So I believe it's important to make sure that we have a competitive salary across, and also to make sure that we have a supportive place for them to all come to. We're also increasing the comfortability of our facilities by air conditioning. I know that can have a big effect on where teachers want to go sometimes. If they know that it's going to be really hot and uncomfortable in school, they might not want to teach there when they can go to a place where they're more comfortable. Also, we'd like to try to update some of the science labs. I know that we had trouble recruiting teachers because of some of the facilities that were out of date. So I think it's also important to make sure that we have the most up-to-date facilities so that our teachers want to come here.
Sue?
I echo what Matt said about the environment, both our physical environment, but also the supportive environment that we can offer for teachers, the respect that they deserve, making sure that we are investing in their professional development and supporting them throughout their learning and their career. From a financial perspective, definitely offering competitive salaries. At the same time, I know that we've been working on an initiative to offset some of our benefit costs, as you've heard in the budget, are a huge part of what we pay. Shifting our folks to health insurance plans that still support them but are less costly to the district as part of the negotiation. overall being the best place to be in Lansing.
The next Board of Education, I understand, will need to institute a bell-to-bell ban on cell phones. I assume this decision has already been made. What does every candidate envision that will look like? How would you support this ban, yet cater to the desire of parents to be in contact with their children? How would you give voice to student concerns about the ban? Or do you believe students should not be able to weigh in? Susan, you start.
So lots of questions there. First of all, I do believe that students should be able to weigh in on everything. I'm very excited to welcome a member of our student body, or hopefully members of our student body, to the board to inform us from a student's perspective. With regard to the cell phone ban, I was disappointed in the governor's proposal for a bell-to-bell ban. We advocated very heavily for local control over that policy. At Lansing right now, we have a up and away policy at the middle school, and high school students are parking their devices at the door when they enter a classroom. I am concerned about our ability to enforce a bell-to-bell ban, and I would support the governor and the legislature modifying that to allow for local control that helps and fits with our student and our community culture.
Matt?
I think I would echo much of what Susan has said. It's, it is unfortunate that we do not have more local control over this. I also am very excited to have more student input on this, as we will have some on the board. So that would be great. I know that screen time is often a fight, whether it be at home or at school. But I know it can be very difficult for teachers, staff, and faculty and administrators to try to enforce. I know that it will be very easy for parents to still reach their students, and students to still reach their parents when needed through the phones at the school. My son just did that today, actually. It worked out quite well. But I would definitely like to see more input from the students on this, and it is unfortunate that we did not have more control over it.
Dave?
Well, I actually went to school and they didn't have cell phones, and we could get hold of our parents through the office, nurse's office, principal's office, and you could get hold of them. I think children have learned to communicate with each other more without cell phones, because now they all just text rather than talk. I think it's a good rule that they're going to try to control some of their cell phones from schools.
Now, the next question concerns potential conflict of interest. Now, as a school board member, or school board members make a lot of decisions, or can impact a lot of decisions regarding different activities. And the question here concerns if any school board member owns a business that the school district uses, where does a conflict of interest come in, or does it not concern you that the school board member may be making money out of the school district? Susan, you start.
I believe that's covered by state education law and our LCSD policies. So I'm not sure if you're asking me what my opinion on that is, but I can tell you that we have policy and state education law that we have to follow with regard to conflicts of interest. I'm not sure I understand what the rest of the question is asking.
Yeah, I mean, this is specifically, if one of the sports teams has a catered event, is a school board member allowed to do the catering at, as a paid business?
As a paid business, my understanding is that according to ed law and our policies, that's not allowed.
Okay. Matt?
Yes, I agree. I think that based on our education law and that's also our policies that is not allowed.
Okay. Dave?
It appears to me if you're on the Board of Education, the education law says you cannot do these activities, but there are other ways around it. You can also go through the boosters, other such organizations that aren't affiliated with the school, and you can still do fundraisers for the children.
So can you repeat that louder? Did everybody hear that?
Yeah,
That's better.
there are ways around the Board of Education, not around the law. The law is the law. But there are organizations like the LF, Lansing Faculty Association, is not affiliated with a contract through the school, nor the boosters, and I think PTSO, and there's a couple other ones, that you can go through them and still do the benefits so the kids get the rightful benefits out of the school experience.
Do schools sanction student clubs and sports teams? So, as a former board member and fellow community member with 3 students in the district, I'm concerned about the conflict of interest that arises with as a result of any board member having a catering business which supports school-sanctioned student clubs and sports teams. You are paid by these organizations and district funds if you are a vendor at an event. And these payments are approved by the school board via the warrants, which is standard protocol at every board meeting. Please explain how you would address this type of conflict of interest as a member of the board. So that's really, this is addressed to you, Dave, but I'm asking all 3 of you how you would address conflict of interest issues.
Well, I guess it would have to be a board of education decision. We'd have to get together as a board and discuss it. I know there's Board of Education laws. The city can't help out with the board because I'm now going to be contracted through the school as a Board of Education member. But like I said before, there's other ways around it. And what I'm doing, there's no profit in it. It's all done by charity. It's all done by volunteer, what I do, if they're talking about me.
Okay. So this is for you to start with, Matt. How do you handle conflicts and disagreements? What strategies do you use for conflict resolution? And this specifically addresses if you have a disagreement with the superintendent or another member of the board over a school district issue. How would you handle that?
Calmly. With respect, I think it's important to talk things out, try to find common ground. Almost everybody here that I know is here for the same reasons, because we like this district, we like the kids that are here, and we want to see what's best for them. So usually where you have things like that, there's usually common ground where you can find. Unfortunately, when you do look at where does your money go, and what happens with your kids. Those are usually the two most important things to almost every parent, is what happens to my money and what happens to my kids. But there's almost always common ground where you can come together and try to find a solution. But I think it's important that we lead by example and show everyone else that we can resolve conflicts in a peaceful, respectful manner.
Same question.
I think if there's a conflict of interest between a school district member and the board, you should sit down and do it one-on-one or as a group, talk it out, because there's always ways around conflict. You can resolve it pretty easily with a little communication.
So that's what you will do.
That's what I would do, yes.
Thank you. Susan, sorry.
Yes. So again, echoing my colleagues here, communication is the most important aspect of conflict resolution. I always try to reason from my values. I always try to make sure that I understand the facts and try to reach agreement around the facts. I believe that conflict resolution is not necessarily everyone has to give something up, but instead we can all get something that we're looking for, and that any conflict that arises on the board should be coming from an area of everyone wanting to do what's best for kids. What's best for kids will always be at the top of my list.
Thank you. In today's economic and political uncertainty, what specific experience do you have that prepares you to lead the district through the challenges that we can anticipate facing in the future? Dave, you start.
Well, I run my own business, so I do know what economic hardships can be.
Can you open up?
And like I said, I run my own business. I worked for 30 years as a power plant in Lansing before that. And you got to keep the pencil going. You just keep working through hard times, that's all. You got to figure out ways to make money where there's no money to be made. That's important as a board to remember that, because sometimes it's not always available to just go out and grab it. You can't always get low hanging fruit. So, thank you.
Susan.
So school board budgets are extremely
How
complicated.
did I go?
School board budgets are extremely complicated, and I have now 9 years of experience learning the budget process and understanding not only our local budget, but our state aid and funding resources. I have lots of contacts throughout the state that help to inform me as to what's going on in other places where they're bringing innovative solutions as well. Again, I would say the answer to this question is studying the budget, being part of the process. There is no supplement or exchange for the experience of having worked through budgets repeatedly in good times, in COVID times, and in hard economic times.
As far as budgets, if anyone's been to the grocery store recently, you can tell that there's definitely difficulties out there for everybody. And being on the school board, there's definitely been a steep learning curve for learning school budgets. And they are quite complicated as far as with state aid and with federal aid and everything that goes into them. So just going into that and with trying to get more state aid, more federal aid, and trying to pinch as many pennies as we can to try to get as much as we can.
Susan, this is for you to start. What is the single most important issue you hope to address and why?
The single most important issue I hope to address and why. How can we create a sustainable educational program for every child? This is the most urgent of our tasks. There are lots of kids in our district who go unseen. I want to make sure we see them. There are lots of kids in our district who excel. I want to make sure we have programs that allow them to reach even further. Honestly, the most important problem, I don't consider them a problem, the most important priority is our kids making sure their physical, mental, academic, and social well-being is on top of mind at all times, and that we are putting them first.
Matt?
The students, making sure that our students,
Don't look at me, look at them. I'm holding up to your mouth.
the number one thing would be the students, making sure that they're happy to come here, they're excited, making sure that we have great programs for all of them to be enriched in, not only through academics, but also through trades. So I think it's really important to have a very well-rounded base.
Dave?
Obviously, the number one priority that I have as a school board member would be the students. Lansing's academics have always been some of the top in the state. I want to make sure it stays that way. And that's my main goal to be on this board.
Now, the next question, which you start with, Matt. Can you describe the way in which you will educate yourselves about an issue with which you don't have expertise or knowledge before making a board decision?
Yes, luckily we have a great deal of professional development on the board. So there are different avenues that we can go through as far as retreats and also workshops. Also, we can consult with our superintendent and our business officials. And then we can also go to the SPCA, where we can go to the state to get help with questions as well.
Dave?
Well, I agree with that to a point. We have a superintendent, principals, and teachers that direct the institutional program. They're the professionals. You should just listen to them, talk to them, and see if we come up with a plan.
And again, I think I would echo my colleagues here. I start with my fellow board members. They each bring a level of expertise and an arena of knowledge that we can use together to reason through issues and learn from one another. Our professional administrators, our teachers, members of the community. I also have a very broad network of educator professionals and school board members from across the state who I rely on to help educate me. I think one of the first things in understanding something that you don't know is to know that you don't know everything, and to start from that level of humility and being willing to be educated and to listen.
I mean, do you have any questions from the audience? Okay.
Wait, there's somebody else.
Oh, I need to write it down?
Yes.
Does anyone else want to card? Anyone else want to card that?
So if elected, how do you plan on preparing yourself to increase your knowledge of the ins and outs of the Lansing City School District and serving on the Board of Education to best serve the students? So how do you plan to prepare to increase your knowledge of the ins and outs of the Lansing School District as you serve on the Board of Education? Oh, Matt, you start.
I would plan to attend seminars and workshops that are provided to the Board of Education for professional development. They are often run by the state. Often we'll see them in Albany or down in New York City. There's some really great professional development out there. We can also get it through social media, of Zoom, or sometimes there's different teleconferences.
Dave.
Well, there will be workshops that I'll attend. I also will listen to the people of Lansing. They'll have a pretty good input on what they're looking to get out of this board. And obviously the principals, district principal, people in charge of the school, I'll listen to what they have to say, learn from them.
I think one of the most important things I learned the first year I was on the board is how hard it is to be on the school board. I see some ex-school board members in the audience, and I think they can attest to the fact that the learning curve is beyond steep. School boards are different than any other type of board that you would be serving on. They are governmental bodies. All the work that we do is in public. Policy, protocol, new laws, budgets, all of this interacts to make a very complicated job for a school board member. The most important thing for a new school board member and hopefully a returning school board member is to continue to accept that I don't know everything, that there is a ton for me to learn, and getting better is my job.
Thank you. This question is about the use of Chromebooks. Do you think Chromebooks are used too much? The questioner thinks that they're used too much, the Chromebooks. What is your view, and how do you cope with kids who don't have Wi-Fi connection at home and have a task to do on their Chromebook? David, you start.
Well, that's definitely an issue for people who don't have internet and Wi-Fi to get on virtual learning. I think we have to provide them with some more materials and help them get through it. But I think it's a tool that can be used.
Susan?
Yes, so I see a county legislator who might be able to help expand broadband across the county. Here, I would work with such a person and also at the state level to advocate for increased rural broadband. During COVID, I know that we did use mobile hotspots to allow students the ability to use their Chromebook devices at home. One of the other things that we have done is to minimize the amount of work that we are asking students to do when they are at home, so that they are able to all utilize equal resources here at school, and we are not leaving kids behind because of where they happen to live in the district.
Screen time is always a fight in our house. I'm sure it is in everyone else's too. I do think that it is good to try to get kids out of the screens as much as we can and their heads into books. But I do understand that books can be difficult to update, where the Chromebook technology is constantly updating. When a book comes out, it might be out of date by the time it gets into circulation. And then there's expenses for replacing those. As far as the connectivity, I know that during COVID we were trying to get mobile hotspots out and reading materials to those that couldn't get it. But I do believe it is best to try to get as much work done as students are home. They can play, be outside, be social with others. So that's my thought.
Thank you. In the political environment of today, many new ideologies have come into schools, such as transgender issues, LGBTQ. These ideologies are also facing pushback from the current national administration. What is your opinion on the place of these discussions and ideologies in our schools? Matt?
I think it's extremely important to have a school where everyone is welcome and accepted. And as far as, I think everyone here is Bobcat, whether you have red hair, white hair, no hair, everybody here is Bobcat. But I think it's important that everybody is accepted and feels comfortable and safe.
Dave?
I agree that everybody should be comfortable in school. But I guess we got some new laws coming down. We're going to have to wait and see how they work out, see how we can adjust to the new laws that are being implemented, I guess. Other than that, I don't know.
Susan?
I am sorry, I didn't hear everything that Dave said, but I think that I definitely agree that every kid who walks through the door should know that all the adults in the place are there for them, and that every kid is welcome as they are, who they are, however they come through that door. We are always having to respect state and federal policies. It's not our job to fight or argue about those policies. It's our job to care for kids, to make sure they have what they need, and that our Lansing school is for every Lansing kid.
This question, these are two related questions, again, to conflict of interest and it's been said that David was donated to LSCDS through his volunteer chicken barbecues for the Lansing athletics and theatre programs. And on the next card it said, my understanding is that a school board member cannot volunteer services to the school. Now this is confusing. What is your feeling about those two statements? Yes. But it is donated it. Yeah. So, Susan, starting with you, where does conflict of interest come in donating chicken barbecues and being a school board member and not being able to volunteer services to the school district?
So I'm not sure I understand all of the question, but everybody who serves on the board volunteers their time. Everything we do is volunteer, right? None of us are paid, and that's where the conflict of interest comes in terms of New York State law, education law, and our policy. I know for a fact that every board member volunteers their time. I spend a tremendous amount of time volunteering through my work at Lansing Lunchbox to support kids in this district. I take no personal financial interest in that. So I don't have any problem with anybody, and in fact, I'm going to call out to the community and to all my board members, let's do more volunteering. That's what community is about.
Now,
Yes, I believe when you help others, you're helping yourself. And as far as volunteering goes, there's always been a running joke with volunteers that the pay is horrible, but the salary doubles every year. I think volunteering is great because, you know, we'd have to, as far as any kind of conflict of interest, we'd have to come back to what state ed law is and what, you know, attorneys are saying. I can't really speak to that part, but you need more volunteers, always.
okay,
Well, I've been volunteering for 30 years to the school district doing chicken barbecues. And it's been a most rewarding experience I've done in my life. I don't see a problem with it being a Board of Education member for doing it for absolutely free. Why there should be a conflict of interest. But if there is one, we'll work through it. Like I said earlier, there's other ways around it. You go through the LFA, you go through the PTSO, you go through other organizations, boosters clubs, we run all these. So there's ways around it. It's not a big issue.
should the Board of Education be allowed to approve a line-by-line list of expenditures in the school budget? Or should they simply vote yes or no on the recommendations of the superintendent? Dave, you start.
I think they should have a right to go through it line by line. That's what you're here as a board for, is if you don't agree with something, you go through it. That's just the kind of way business should be run. You can't just go with one voice, you gotta have everybody involved in it.
Susan?
Yes, so I will just refer everybody back to our current process. The Board of Education has an intimate knowledge of our school budget. We receive presentations every school board meeting. We receive a lot of education about how to understand our school budgets. In terms of a line-by-line veto, I don't believe that there are school board members. We are qualified to go line by line. We have a professional business administrator and a professional superintendent that the board hires to do that job. One of the first things you learn in school board, university, or school training is that it is not the goal of the school board to micromanage the work of our professional administrators. Our job is oversight. We are to be aware, to be educated, and to be informed, not to micromanage.
I would agree with my colleague that our role is more of a 30,000-foot view and not to get too much into the weeds and micromanage, but to try to provide some more oversight and not get into the weeds.
Now, one last question, and then we're going to have final statements. So this time, it's starting with you, Susan. How do you handle disagreements when parents ask you to ban certain things? When parents ask for certain taken out of the school library?
I have never had such a conflict, so I haven't had to manage that. But our protocols and policies of the school board are any questions like that. It is our responsibility to refer them to our professional educators and administrators to manage. We do not have book banning initiatives in Lansing, as far as I've ever been aware. But should someone come to me with such a request, I will remind them that I am one school board member. Any members of the board are trained to do the same. We make our decisions as a body, and we follow our guidelines and our responsibilities in setting the overarching, as Matt said, 30,000-foot direction of the district, not micromanaging individual details like that.
Luckily, I have also not run across that. I kind of hope I don't, but if I did, I would also say that you bring it to the board to discuss that I am one of 7 to vote, but we would need to bring that to everyone to discuss, and I also refer to our school leadership.
Okay.
Well, I would tell those people we have 3 librarians, each one in each school, that they probably can tell those folks that should be in the school better than the Board of Education can. That they should contact the librarians and see about if they got concerns over the book. But we have professionals in the library that they probably know their business pretty good.
Thank you. And now it's time for final statements, and we're starting with you, Dave. It's Dave, Matt, and finishing with Susan.
Well, I'd like to thank you all for coming out tonight, and hopefully we shed some light on how we feel about Lansing and school. I know, like I said, I've been a lifetime president of the school, and I'd like to, for this town, I'd like to keep continuing to help the school grow and be a better school for all of our children, including the parents, because they've got a right to have a say in the school too. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for their attention and attendance. I am unapologetically here for the students. I would like to see a place where students wake up excited to come to school every day, a place where they feel safe, a place where they feel accepted. To do that, we also need a workplace where teachers, administrators, and staff are also excited to wake up to come to work every day. A place where they too feel safe, accepted, and supported. It is the job of the board to create policies to facilitate this vision. I am asking for your support and your vote on May 20th to continue this work. Thank you.
What you said. Yeah. So, as you guys have come to understand through this conversation and your observations of the school board work is serious. As adults, we have a very long view of the world. We have an argument, we come back to it, we'll say, we'll solve it next year. Our kids don't have a next year to be in 3rd grade, or 8th grade, or as a senior. They need our best now, always, and in the immediate moment. That's why I say that school board work is serious. It puts a burden on us as school board members, a serious commitment to put in the time, to listen, and to learn. Things are changing every day, but we need to be steady, and we need to be focused on our kids. I believe that an understanding of the complexity of school budgets, school policy, laws, mandates, contractual obligations, all that adult stuff that the school board has to deal with is essential for a school board member. At the same time, we have to remember this is the future of our kids, their future, and it is our job to support a a vision that leads to what they want for their lives. A school board member should exercise good judgment based on facts, an understanding of the system, and a focus on what's best for kids. If you're looking for that in a school board trustee, I ask you for your vote. You will know that I am focused on their future and that I always ask, is it good for kids?
So, thank you for coming, and I encourage everyone to vote in the school board elections. And when you've voted in the school board election, remember we have some very important local elections in November. We may not have many primaries in June, but nonetheless, voting locally is really important. It starts with your schools and it goes on. So thank you all.